All right, thanks everybody for coming. This is assembly number 3, What Comes Next? I think we have a few new people joining us potentially. We're going to talk about what just happened with phase 1 of the competition and what we've done up until this point. And then after that, we're going to talk about our call to action and what that's about over the coming months, and talk about some potential actions and potential topics that we can weave into our work here. So first, if Jolene wants to get us started with a recap of phase 1 of the ideas competition.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I will just do a quick recap from our last assembly, which is actually quite long ago. It's a bit more than a month. We met the last time on the 3rd of December. And since then, we have done a few actions as a group, and we would like to go through that. So the first thing we did was to publish an open letter. We published it on the 9th of December. Could you skip to the next slide, please, Josh? Thanks. So we published our open letter on the 9th of December, and since then, our actions have gained traction and people are really paying attention to the topic. On the 11th of December, only a weekend after, our news was covered by Tagesspiegel with 1,890 signatures at that point and counting. They were also quoting our critic of being instrumentalized as architects, and this is what this ideas competition was. This is what we were against, let's say. And currently we have 4,134 signatures. If you go to the next slide, please. So the very next day after our Tagesspiegel article, we sent our first physical copy to the office of Senator Christian Gebler and also addressing him directly. Since then, we have not gotten a direct reply from his office. So we took the chance on the 15th of January during the submission of the competitions phase 1 to submit again a physical copy as a protest submission as well. As I said, next slide, please. We have 4,134 signatures currently, and we would like to make it to 10,000 signatures by the end of jury phase 1, which is in a month, 21st of February. These were the dates, I think 21st and 22nd February were marked in the Auslob of the ideas competition. We would like to make this goal of 10,000 signatures because when we sign and share the open letter, I think many of you here have already signed it, but please continue sharing it with your network, whether academic or professional, also to your friends and family. By doing this action, we naturally raise awareness for the topic and start discussions with people. And not only we can foster more conversations and also bring new topics to the table, we could also engage more of the neighborhood, especially around the Tempelhofer Feld and Berlin in general. In such a big news, somehow, I feel like it is a bit disproportionate that not every resident of Berlin knows about it yet, or many of them are still under the impression that the current THF Gazette is still protecting the field, which is not really the case as we know it, or the Senate is trying to somehow change this fact. We also have a press kit that contains physical posters that you can also print out and put it around your office, your school, or your neighborhood. Please also send us photos of it if you have done that. We would really appreciate it. Next slide, please, Josh. So since day one, we have been trying to foster a counter narrative to this ideas competition that was launched by the Senate. So in, let's say, response to the competition entry, we have done a protest submission, but not only, we have also started a starter kit with the help of some of our supporters here as a working group, a starter kit working group, and we have distributed more than 50 of them via our network. And we hope that we have 50 or more entries of protests or even genuine proposals from our group. And further, we are also collecting these submissions via a Dropbox request link. Some of you have already uploaded them, and if you have not, please take the time to. We understand that the guidelines of the competition request it to be anonymous. We will keep all of these entries with us only privately, at least until the end of the jury phase. And if you are worried about that, you can also use an incognito window to upload your file anonymously. Or you could also, of course, take the other way of waiting until the 21st or 22nd of February, where the jury of phase 1 will take place. And I assume a few days after, we should all receive notifications of whether you go through the next phase, if you're disqualified, or if you would be part of the exhibition, because they claim also that they will be exhibiting participants from the phase 1 who didn't make it to phase 2, as long as you're not disqualified. I think Martina also dropped some of the links in the chat. And for our group ourselves, we have submitted as well an entry, which is different from the starter kit. So rest assured, your anonymity is also still preserved. This is the provocative image that was submitted as a protest to the ideas competition of Tempelhofer Feld. And we chose this style of this topic communication to illustrate the urgency and the scale of irreversibility with such a big development. Make no mistake, we have no, let's say, we can't afford to make this mistake, and not only in terms of material resources, but also immaterial resources of the field that will be gone forever once we make a development, whether just around the ring or the entire field. I think we also understand that urban voids are as important to the other issues raised with the ideas competition, for example, the housing crisis, especially when we as a group have mentioned several countermeasures to tackle the issues. The other part is this quote, "To build is to destroy," is by Charlotte Malte-Barth. She's an architect, urban designer, scholar, and also initiator of a global moratorium on new construction. She wrote this quote for our open letter, RE Do Not Build, on the 9th of December. Charlotte is known for her work at the intersection of architecture, urbanism, and social justice. And she's a thought leader for addressing pressing global issues such as housing inequality, climate change, and migration through her design and research. And she's currently assistant professor in EPFL, leading her laboratory RIOT. So we took this chance to also kind of use her quote in combination with the image to tell a very drastic story in terms of our protests that RE Do Not Build, to build is to destroy. These are the claims that we have so far that is meant to make you look twice, let's say. And we would like to share this image further. We have shared also the file on our Telegram chat. And if you are still not in there and you want to be, please write to us to get the invite link. Share this image, and also to the press, whoever that you know that might be able to publish it, whether online or on paper. And we also have this image on our press kit in terms of the image itself, but also the one with the quote, with the caption of credits to the quote to Charlotte. It is the format of what we have posted on our Instagram. And before we tell you what's next, which is kind of the title of this assembly, we want to tell you our mission. So I will just read this 2 slides and maybe explain some more. Architects4THF Feld serves as a network of professionals which are dedicated to the built environment and its boundaries. We are non-partisan, and we recognize Tempelhofer Feld as a contact point to a series of periphery topics informing the social and ecological future of our city planning. Since we mentioned that this counter narrative or the idea of counter narrative from the very start of our campaign or initiative, we have until this point managed to create this network and also platform of around 2,300 supporters that we have. And we would like to continue doing this to provide this space for all of us to connect and also discuss this issue of Tempelhofer Feld as well as its periphery topics. The fact that this field has so much attention right now in the next months and in the next years, we see it as a chance to also reflect the problems and possible solutions of the periphery themes, such as something within the political landscape, legislation, democratic values, property prices, land prices, also the topic of architecture, how shall it move on? What is the role of architecture today in terms of preservation, conservation, adaptive reuse, and transformation? I think what we want to also highlight is that not only problems, but solutions, and to use this as a precedent for future cases, not only in Berlin, Germany, Europe, but also internationally in terms of how we are going forward in our city planning.
Okay, so going forward, we're really only at the start of our intervention here in the competition, and we want to sort of bring you back a little bit to what we talked about for our initial goals. Is we recognize that the Senat now is trying to tell this story that architects and planners want to build on Tempelhofer Feld. And through our campaign, we're building this counter narrative that actually we're against this for many good reasons. And as the competition progresses, we can identify several different points here that you might see about where we can step in and say something different than what the Senat is trying to put forward at different points in time. First, next week, we're actually going to give a talk at AIDES in Mitte. All of you should come and share this invite as well, just to sort of promote this a little bit more in the architecture community. And we're going to keep doing events like these. But then our big thing that we're announcing today is we're going to put out an open call in February, where we're asking for submissions for lots of different ideas about different topics, different actions that we can do on or off the Feld, and bring attention to analysis of the problems that we see with this type of urban planning in Berlin, and also maybe some of the solutions. So we're going to publicize our open call right around the time that the winners of the first phase are announced. So then we'll talk about this a little bit more in the upcoming slides, but we're going to ask for your help in figuring out what exactly the open call should look like and how we can design this in a way that gets participation from a lot of different people, maybe some other initiatives that are already working on similar struggles who might have good ideas to bring in. So what are some things this could look like? Maybe we could think about how to have a presence on the fields with things that are built or not. Maybe we can look at, like I mentioned, some different points as the competition progresses, where we can start to bring attention with people that use the field every day, that this competition is happening and how we're working against it. But we also really want to have an alternative exhibition, which we've been talking about this whole time, because the final sort of point in the competition is the city is going to have their own exhibition in September, and we want to basically say, even though the city is focused really narrowly on building, there's all these other ideas and all these other formats. You know, the competition was very limited, and many of you didn't participate. And so we're going to ask for, you know, it could be artworks, it could be performances, it could be spaces for dialogue, and there's a lot more that we can say there. So what are some possible topics, or what are some other things that we kind of see as intersecting? We're going to give you some ideas for what could happen with the open call, but we also are interested in what you guys might bring. So some examples are how to build more housing without feeding into existing speculation, how to work with existing building stock to add more housing supply, how to think about the current problems with land prices, which, you know, the price of land is actually what leads to high rent. And then maybe also the role of the architect in our current and political and economic framework. We've seen how the influence of our title gives us a certain position in the democratic process, and maybe we can be critical about this. And then finally, the democratic value of spaces like Tempelhofer Feld and the dialogue that we have around it. What possible forms might this take? There's might be some interesting architecture actually, but we are also thinking about other ways this can come out. We've already been talking about having a publication that we are going to be working on, but maybe some of you could bring forward ideas for articles or zines that could be shared with people in Berlin. We could also use some help making social media content. Like I said, we can talk about different ways to have a presence on the field. But it's also, this exhibition could be thought of as like, there could be workshops as part of this, or little conference formats, or other spaces where people can talk to each other. Since the city is trying to have a dialogue workshop that they're sort of ignoring, maybe we should have our own. And then, as we already mentioned, this exhibition, which can have lots of different formats of works that are shown. So right now, for the next step, I think Martina is going to take it away.
Maybe before Martina explains this part, do we want to run the poll to see what the audience would be interested in the previous
Sure. Let me
slide?
go back to this
Yeah,
slide.
and I will just launch it. And here we have it. I think since that a lot of our work are like voluntary and also based on the amount of time and interest we gather also from the supporters, it would be interesting to know what you all are interested in based on this suggestions that we have, so we could kind of range also in terms of priority. Or I believe that we can't really do everything, at least not from the core group side, and we would of course encourage everyone to participate also outside of this group into being present on the field, because it's also coming up in summer. So let's see how it's going. And at the moment we are, because it's multiple choice, so the first in line is actually events, spaces for dialogue, and the second is presence on the field. This is kind of what we expected, but there are some social media content interests as well. It's, I think 25 out of 34 people have answered. I can also end the poll in a few seconds. All right. Do we see the results, all of us? Cool. I think the events and spaces for dialogue is quite high rated, and also presence on the field. I think if you have direct suggestions or also know groups that do this as their main thing, feel free to write about it in the chat, because I think there are a lot of groups that are doing this as their main core in terms of architecture and design, and we could really need their help in terms of collaborating to make all of these events happen. Back to you, Josh/Martina.
Yes. Hello. We announced the call to actions, and we are also asking you to join us, especially in the very first phase. We need help to create the content of these call to actions in order to issue an open call document to spread around and make these exhibitions happen. So in this first phase, we will work together on some topics that might catch your interest, and we would like to issue these open call documents by the 22nd or 27th of February, so precisely in the moment in which the winners of the first phase competitions will be announced. And what we want to do with this call to action, as explained before, is going to be somehow free format, open format, and we want to keep the voice loud, especially when the silence from the counterpart is coming, might coming intentionally. So we have to keep telling the story. And how we can do it, we provide you now some kind of entry topics, but feel free to write us via email or also right now in the chat if you have something in mind. So the matters around the competitions of Tempelhofer Feld, of course, can open questions on how we work with the existing Tempelhof Gesetz, how this regulatory tool can somehow allow many interventions of the field to keep this field alive and still public, so we can work within this framework by proposing temporal architecture, floating architecture, intervention that they don't need any kind of permissions, and somehow we can remind the ecological and the sustainable values of the field. But around this main bubble that is super focused on Tempelhofer Feld, there are so many questions that arose around, and they addressed the role of architects and how we perceive ourselves in this today's community. So one question could be: we are against new constructions on Tempelhofer Feld, but how the new constructions can be sustainable inserted in the existing urban fabric without boosting speculations or any kind of financial system that create inequality. So topics might be, for example, working with existing buildings. What can be the strategies or the guidelines for that? How to work with the lands, how the land prices and the land management influence, for example, the house crisis, the renting prices, the purchase prices, how the regulatory can work in order to preserve a sustainable life for everyone, and not just focusing on the sustainability intended as energy value, but also social value, historical value, everything that can be around our community. And beside this topic, we can also question quite consequently ourselves, what is our ethic role as architects in today's community? How can we react in this system in which we are actually the engine of the system, because we are the one that are working with buildings, the new buildings, existing buildings. We are also working for developer firms, and our salary most of the time is coming from this kind of source and this kind of interventions as the competitions is describing. Another possible question, for example, how to preserve the immaterial values of these unbuilt or let's say empty space, but they are not empty. So we have some immateriality that we can use to work with. For example, the democracy value, the identity, the cultural, the historical value of the field. So we have many topics that we can draft together in order to create this kind of counter narrative. And we are very curious to know from your side which can be your ideas in order to draft this document to be spread around internationally.
Thanks, Martina. Yeah, so one other point that we can kind of bring into this is that Tempelhofer Feld is going to get a lot of attention, and we already have, but it's going to get a lot more attention in the coming months, as the competition progresses and more of these ideas about building get closer and closer. And because this relates to so many different issues with urban planning that we're seeing in Berlin and politically in Berlin, there's a lot of different other initiatives and trying to defend other places in the city, or other issue campaigns, that we might be able to not only get a lot of attention for this problem on the Feld, but we might be able to help reflect a lot of this attention other places in Berlin where it's really needed, and talk about solutions that can really work at a large scale for a lot of what we're seeing and a lot of the problems with urban planning. So right now, what we need is your guys' help to put this together and to share this call when we publish it in February. For those of you who are not on our Telegram yet, write us an email and tell us about if there's any of those areas that we had in the poll maybe that you're interested in collaborating on. Are you interested in helping plan an exhibition? Are you interested in developing one of these topics? And if you're already in Telegram, something that we've seen is sometimes people are really waiting for us to do something, but you can initiate things yourself. I think what we're going to say now is, since this open call is going to be released around the 22nd to 27th of February, we're going to meet in about 2 weeks' time to start putting this together. And so let's talk in Telegram and find an exact day. But yeah, we're going to start forming working groups to help plan different pieces of this. And our email again is architects4THF@gmail.com. So write us there. And next week, come out and join us at this talk we're going to give. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything I may have forgotten to mention.
Just maybe a little bit about what is happening in this event that we're showing here. So we got invited to give a lecture, part of the second day program on the 29th. The title of the exhibition is A Seat at the Table. It's organized by a group of students from Berlin International, the architecture school. And they have a very interesting program, and they are going to exhibit their final works. And they also invited then the people that they have worked with throughout the whole semester to give talks, which is also written, I believe here, the 5 topics on the bottom right, like non-human perspectives and cohabitation, shaping your own city, migration, diaspora, and right to stay, inclusion of rural areas, sex workers in dialogue. So they're really covering a lot of topics. And as I've been told, there is already a project that is on Tempelhofer Feld and about these bird species that is in the that are populating the fields, and there is a project about it. So if you're around, check out the exhibition. Join us. We'll be giving a short lecture about what we have been up to, and also we'll take the chance to highlight the themes of what we will be interested in to, let's say, cover in terms of the guideline of the open call. So that's also a chance for us to kind of discuss a little bit in person if you're interested, and just come and hang out with us. I think it will be quite an interesting day in terms of programming.
All right, so thanks again, everybody who participated in the competition, who sent out a protest submission also people on this call who made a submission which included no building on the field. Really excited to see what happens at the end of February and what happens in the press and the conversations around this first round of winners. So we'll see you all in Telegram very soon. In the exhibition channel, we're starting to talk about how we can put these together. And yeah, we'll see you in person in Berlin soon.